So, how to access a linked list? Let's assume we create a list, a linked list. We already created and we want to access it. I can't access each node by itself, but I have another way. I have the head. This is the head that I will catch my linked list from it. So we access from a list. We create a temp node, and we have the head. The temp node is the node that holds the first node that I have. I have the access to it, and I have the pointer that is accessing to it. How to move to the next node? I have this way. Head dot next will send me to the next. But if I use this one, head equal head dot next, that means I'm deleting the first node. So I will create a temp. Here's telling us if I move to the next, I will lose this. There's no pointer on the first node, so I will lose it. So I will use something we call a node temp. It's a temporary node. I will use it. It's will be pointing to null. This will help us to move on the or to access all the nodes. How then do we traverse walking into a list? We make a temporary node variable to help us move through a list. It's not good to leave variables uninitialized. We initialize a temp to null, or when we create first and then we initialize it to null. Second, we will say temp equal head. Now my temporary node is pointing to the head. If I want to move to the next node, I would say temp equal head dot next. Then I would say temp equal temp dot next. Then and so on to move or to walk on or to traverse on the list. So it's need to access the list. We use the following line: temp equal head. There is what our picture look like now. Here we are printing the data, or we are using the data. How to use the data? Temp dot data, similar to the previous one, head head dot next or head dash greater than next. Both will print the same string. Here, this will print the data that is encoded in the head. As you said, here's the code to traverse. Note why we will have a syntax error. Why? Because both sides of the assigned statement are variables type node. Temp is a variable of type node, and next is name member is variable of the type node. So both of them are nodes. Here, both of them are nodes. So is there any error? No. Why? Because both of them are correct. Because I'm not equal to node. That's it. Or the pointer of temp is pointing to the next of the temp. Just telling us if I want to point to the next null, I will say temp.next. This will make the temp point to the second in this way. If I want to print the data, I will say temp dot data. If I want to get the next, I will use next. Change our picture. Okay, that's it. To the data field by temp.data, and we also repeatedly use temp in this fashion to iterate through the list. So I'm moving. If I want to move from a place to another place using this list, I will just pointer on I will use the same idea. I will create a temp, and this temp will be pointing to the head, and then traverse in this way. Head, then the next, then the next, then the next, and so on. If I want to change the data here, I will say temp.data equal 10. Now I am putting this 10 on the data which is in the temp. I will go to the temp, this is the temp. It's pointing on this node. In this node, I'm changing this data, which is, will be equal to 10. This save 10. Okay, this sort the manipulating is hand of editing list. Here I'm editing this node. If I want reverse till end, or I want to print everything I want to print all the data that my linked list include them. Okay, first of all, I have already created the I have already created my linked list. I'm creating a node, temporary node, temp node equal new node, temp equal head, while temp is not equal to null. So that means while I'm moving on my linked list, I didn't reach this null yet. What should I do? Cout temp.data. I want to print the data, then go to the node, next node in my chain. Okay, chain my data. Let's take a closer. We start to make our temp head is reference. Okay, as we said, the while statement simply makes sure that we are pointing to a valid node. Because if temp is not, we have reached the end of the list. So while temp is not null, meaning we are at a valid node. So we can print the data field that it's included in my node. With that we after printing it, then we move temp to the next node. How to move it? In this way, temp equal temp dot next. This is the same line of the code that we went over in details on earlier slide. Okay, this is the same idea how to print, how to display the value of my linked list. So while temp is not null, we basically print a node's data and then traverse down the list one step. We print, then traverse, print, then traverse, print, then traverse. We do this again and again. At some point we will reach the last node. لما نصل على last node يعني we are reaching the null. When we are reaching the null means the next value of that node will point to a null, which will get saved into temp. يعني هنحفظ النل بقلب الtemp, which will kick us out of the loop, لأنه نحن قلنا طالما إنه temp is not equal to null, بس هي temp equal to null هيعملنا kick out of the loop. هذه الشرط أو الكونديشن لحتى نعمل stop. اوكي الكونديشن والاتريتر. هذا الاتريتر هنا، وهذا اللاين الستيتمنت اللي هسوي له اللي هيكون عندي الكود اللي انا بدي اياه، اللي هو بيكون برنت، بيكون sum، بيكون مثلا انا بدي اعمل كاونت للافرج، مثلا ممكن يكون sum، مثلا انا بدي اشوف مين الماكسيموم، ممكن يكون هنا بكتبه هنا بشوف الماكس تبع اللينكد ليست تبعي. So here we'll print out 10. Then we'll move to the next node. I will remove this line. It will print out 20. Then it will move to the next node. لأنه وصلنا هنا هيموف على next node. So move to the next node حتى يعمل print ل 50. بعدين بعد ما يعمل 50 بيعمل pointing على النل اللي هو هون، بيعمل break لللوب تبعي. Done. We are done with this. If I use this way, what will happen to me? I'm not using the head or temp. I'm using the head to print. Helper pointer or point. Yes, it would be valid and it would traverse the list just fine. Would the following code be helping? Okay, this one will traverse with us. Head equally. But what will happen? I'm deleting each node. I will lose them. يعني بعد ما اعمل اوكي هنا الهيد بيصير يعمل pointing على هنا حيصير يروح، فما في اي شيء عم يعمل pointing على 10، فهذه النود اللي بالاول هنا حنخسرها، ما حيصير في عندي access لها. نفس الشيء بس يصير يعمل بوينتنج على هذا، صار عندي هذه ما في شيء عم يعمل اكسس عليه او يعمل بوينتنج عليها، فحصل النوت. فكل ما مشي الهيد حكون عم بخسر نوت. انا فيني استخدمها كاتريتر، فيني استخدمها لحتى اقرا الاشياء تبعوتي الداتا تبعتي، بس انا I'm losing my notes, I'm losing my data. Remember, when traversing linked list, you always want to use a temp pointer. لما أكون عم بعمل traversing عم بمشي على linked list، أنا لازم أستخدم شيء اسمه temp pointer. Never use the head because you will lose data. This allows you to maintain integrity. Okay, this is the code that will help us to display, to delete, to print the maximum, to get the average, uh, to search in a node. This is the main step or the main code. Will help us in everything for later on. Here's my code. My code. I'm creating three class node. Now I put my method up here. Why I should put it here? Because if I put it under the main, in C++ will not see it. Will not search for it. It can't be. It can't be readable or can't be accessed. But before the main, it will be accessed. وهذا كمان مهم بالنسبة لي لما أنا أكون عم بعمل methods بقلب السي بلس بلس، ليكون الميثودز تحت بعض. إذا بدي أعمل access لميثود تحت الميثود اللي أنا عم بعملها run، ما حيقدر، لازم تكون معرفة فوقها. اوكي، عملت 3 نودز here، head second third، عملت لهم data، بعدين قلت له print list، عملت call لهالميثود اللي هو حياخذ الهيد عندي وحيعمل iteration. اوكي، وبهالطريقة كده عملت الداتا تبعتي كلها اللي هي 1 2 3 and so on. Traverse. Okay, how to modify all the data. Again, I'm creating temporary here equal new node. عملت له pointing على الهيد، قلت له time and temp is not equal to null. سوي iteration. كل ما سوي iteration حيعمل الداتا الجديدة حيزودها 10. يعني مثلا كانت عندي بقلب هذه 1 2 3، تمام، حتصير هذه 11 12 13، عم زودها 10. Let's take a closer look. What will happen here? Printing all the data, we are modifying sibling adding data to the adding 10 to the data. Traverse and modifying data of a linked list. Assume that head is already pointing to a valid linked list. This class node was defined earlier. هذا اللي عرفناه. Let's say we want to add 10 to each data. عملنا بهالطريقة. عملنا call المethod اللي هون. We then traverse the list with a second instruction of a loop. تمام، بدل ما يكون عندي print هنا غاية الانستراكشن تبعي وحطيته انه زود 10. When we reach temp.next will be a null and we will exit the loop. لحتى حنسوي iteration لحتى تصير temp.next هون لحتى تصير null. تمام، ما نوقف الiteration. We will talk about how to add a node, how to delete a node, and how to search in nodes. For each of those you need to know how to traverse the list. كيف بنحرك الليست أو كيف بدي أمشي على الليست خطوة بخطوة. Next time we will go over adding a nodes. That's it and have a nice day.